Well, good morning, everybody in India, or good evening if you're tuning in from North America. Welcome to the Safe Connection Expert Panel Series. Tonight's session is called Recordable Injuries Have Come Down, but Serious Injuries and Fatalities Have Not. Why? Now, there's been a lot of talk. Almost every conference you go to, there will be somebody talking about SIFs, serious injuries and fatalities. And there's, if you will, the typical train or school of thought is you go look at what you're doing for high voltage, high temperature, working at heights, confined space entry. I typically call them the usual suspects because those are typically where the serious injuries and fatalities were thought to have come from, or the majority of them. So the focus was certainly on, if you will, that skinny triangle. But that's also been going on now for about 10 years. And again, very little movement with the serious injuries and fatalities. So obviously, you've got two choices. You can keep going on the existing course, the existing strategy, perhaps go back and look at what you're doing in terms of procedures, training records, observations, things like that. Or you can start looking in a new direction or for something new. So that's basically just trying to set the stage here, if you will, everybody. And if I could, I'd like to introduce the panelists. Now, some of them have been with us for the previous series, where we started with complacency and COVID. It's not over until it's over. We were doing that in the summer, and it's still not over yet, as we all know. The next one was really interesting. Leading indicators, what would make you change? And when we're talking about a significant change based on proactive leading indicators. And then the next one was zero harm, yes or no. Should you have zero harm in your mission statement or not? And then the last one in the first series was about felt leadership. And would that actually get all the way down to the shop floor? And if you could actually get it to the shop floor, would it be possible to actually get it out to the contractors? And I remember, Arun, you had some great comments about all of that as well when we were doing that one. This series of four, everybody, we're starting off with this one on the recordable injuries versus the serious injuries and fatalities. But I'm also hoping you can join us for the next one in the new year, which is excellent safety equals excellent business performance. Yes, but is it just cause, or is it actually, is it cause or is it correlation? And then the third one will be injury prevention strategies for old workers and young workers. How do you deal with the two high risk categories? Now, this has been going on since I've been in this business, which is more than a couple of months. Old workers and young workers. Larry, the young guys get hurt more than the old guys, but it's the old guys that die. I mean, this has been going on for 30 years. That's obviously not cause. I mean, being old doesn't cause fatal injuries, but the correlation is huge in terms of fatalities, industrial fatalities over 55 years old. So that was a really interesting one when we did that in North America. I'm really looking forward to doing it with you guys here in India in the new year. And then the last one in this series is balancing just culture and accountability in the real world. How do you make it fair? And this whole idea of the real world is the premise of these Safe Connection webinars, everybody. You can go, like I said, and you can go to a conference and somebody can talk about whether you should have zero harm in your mission statement or not. Perhaps an academic who can say it's an unrealistic goal because you'll always have regression to the mean. Yeah, well, but that doesn't mean if you're trying to get your employees to embrace safety 24/7 that giving them a goal of a 30% decrease in workplace injuries is going to get you there, right? So I think when you actually have to make the decisions and live with the decisions, it's a little bit easier than, quite frankly, getting on the plane and flying back to the university. So the people we have here are people who actually have to live with the decisions they make. I know most of them better just by their first names, but I'll see if I can get it right. Mr. Shankar Raja is with Sterling Wilson. I've known him for a long time. You're still in, are you still in Australia, Sterling? I mean, you've been in the Middle East, you've been in India. The last time you were on the webinars, you were in Australia. Are you still in Australia?
Sydney to Dubai, it is right now. One leg done.
One leg done. Okay. And Mr. Room Submarinian is with Coromandel, which is part of the Murugappa Group fertilizer division in VSAG, if I got that right, Arun? In VSAG?
Vizag, the same.
Vizag?
You're Bangalore, the COVID.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
we also have Mr. Morale, and he is with FL Smith, although I met him in January when he was with Tata Motors. And Mr. Prabish is with John Energy out of Kuwait. And I have known Prabish now for a number of years, and we've worked together conferences in Kuwait. And I think Prabish and I set the record for almost doing leadership sessions and having some disaster stop it. I mean, we are now at about 4 different things have happened that have stopped. And it's almost comical, really, because we've got everything in place, other than we just didn't count on COVID and nobody could fly anywhere. So, gentlemen, thank you first of all very much for taking the time out of your busy days to join us. Now, if I can, I'm just going to go around somewhat quickly and just try to help establish a bit of the pattern. And I know you guys have already told me that it's a bit difficult because the reporting standards, especially for recordable injuries versus serious injuries, aren't necessarily consistent across the board, across industries, across countries. But let's just talk about obviously if somebody dies, that's a pretty reliable statistic. So, and I know you can fudge recordable statistics to no end, but nevertheless, it's like I remember Wynn Stewart saying this a long time ago. Yeah, you can fudge lost time accident statistics, but if somebody dies, and you can count it. So, if all else fails, we can talk about the number of people who've actually passed away, unfortunately, and has that number come down. So let's just start with the pattern a bit. Maybe Prabish, I could just get you to comment on what it's like in the Middle East. Have the fatalities, the serious injuries and fatalities come down? Have the recordable injuries come down? I'm more interested in the serious injuries and fatalities over the last 20 years, but just tell us what you can about the statistics over the last 10 or 20.
Yeah, thanks, Larry, and thanks for the team. Yeah, I'm actually working in the upstream sector in oil and gas, where we actually do drilling and workover activities for the oil wells. When I call upstream, because everybody calls us oil and gas, we are in the upstream, and there is midstream where the transportation and tank farms, and the downstream is basically the refinery process activities. So if you see in the upstream sector or the old Middle East sector, the upstream sector, the incident started from 1980 with the Alexander Hilland incidents. And after that, Piper Alpha, after that, Deepwater Horizon, and after that, we have blowouts continuously happening. There is a Mumbai incident happened in the upstream sector, and the recent blowout incident happened in Assam, in India. So if you see that in the upstream sector, and even in the incidents are happening, there is a continuous trend. The serious incidents and the huge property losses, huge money losses, asset losses, and the fatalities are continuously happening. And even in the Middle East, it's a continuous process happening. And if you see the trend, once the big incidents are happening, everybody will becoming alert for another 1 or 2 months. And after a quarter, it is happening again. So in this sector, basically the incidents are a continuous process. Fatalities are same. If you see the yearly total, if you see the yearly totals in a worldwide itself, the total will be same all the years, and the serious injuries remains the same. That is a big concern for everybody. And the one more thing is that I don't know how much is true, because only 50% of incidents we are coming out as lessons learned. 50% of the incidents nobody knows what is exactly happened. Either the company inside they are clearing it out, or from the client sides we are clearing it out, or from the other organizations it is not coming out. So incidents are happening in the sector. Even it is not in the oil and sector. If you see the Middle East or in the other countries, it is happening continuously on all other sectors.
Exactly. The research that I've been doing on it's dreary, right? Reading fatal injury reports. I've read 400 of them in the last few months, but you can only read about 20 a day because it's just depressing. But it's not. There's so many of these small little companies, they're not, they probably don't even have a safety professional, like kind of thing, right? They're the people that are clearing the limbs away from the power lines and doing landscaping and, 71-year-old farmhand, things like that, right? So, not necessarily the Fortune 500 so much. Arun, let me ask you about the serious injuries and fatalities. I don't know if you feel comfortable about, commenting on all of India, but certainly in your industrial sector, I know that the serious injuries and fatalities have remained persistently stubborn, right? They despite the efforts, it's been very difficult getting those serious injuries and fatalities to come down. But how has it been in sort of southern India, or all of India, if you want to comment on all of India? Arun, oh no, is your mic off?
Thank you, Larry.
Oh, you.
Thank you, Larry. You can hear me now?
Yes, excellent.
Sorry, there is some disturbance, and this is one disadvantage of working from home. My neighbor has started construction, so you'll hear some sounds in between. So let me go to your question that, see, I've been working quite long in the industry, and from my early days, what I see that the reporting trend has increased and become more transparent. And also I see the lagging indicators of TRIR or LTIR or FAR have seen a dip over a period of time. And there's some good reasons for the dip. At the same time, we don't see it touching the bottom. So it comes and just stabilizes somewhere, and suddenly it's a lull period, and again you have a peak. So the trends I see over the years. In spite of a lot of effort, even managements are confused that you're brought in so many systems, you're training people, and you're getting into a lot of automation nowadays. And in spite of all these, you don't see the actual, the number of incidents the seriousness of incidents. Some of the incidents which happen really have a very big consequence, and that doesn't come down. And that is also experienced in some of the best industries in the world, coming to oil and gas and other industries. And similar is for fertilizer and chemicals. So we have, even today, we have a challenge that we face is, are these incidents really giving us a lesson learned that is well communicated back, and then we try to rectify those issues, or we just do a RCA or a sort of investigation and have an action plan which is closed out without a real rectification of the problem to cause itself.
Okay.
So one of the things.
Go ahead.
So one of the things we is on the accident control charts. where you get an average monthly average for 60 months, and then you take the upper control limit, lower control limit, and keep on putting the number of instances instead of the TRIR, and see whether it is going below the lower control limit or upper control limit, to give a sense that something is not right. So that's one way of tracking apart from TRIR.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly it's a worthwhile thing to do anyhow, just so people don't sometimes celebrate being lucky and chastise themselves for being unlucky when the difference between 1 LTI and 5 LTIs is all within statistical control. You guys, you're patting yourself on the back when you get to 1, but it doesn't necessarily mean your process was any better than when it was 5, right? So you gotta, I think that's useful in and of itself. But again, I think, without sounding like, getting on the soapbox or whatever, the reason we're all here, though, isn't because we wanted to prevent a couple sprains and strains. It's because we want to get rid of the serious injuries and the fatalities, right? So far, 2 for 2 on the fatalities haven't come down, but you were also helping to establish, Arun, that the recordable injuries, because of better record keeping in your industry, had at least come down as well. Okay, so Mr. Morelli, what would you say? Coming from Tata there, and then now where you are, what have you seen in terms of recordable injuries, and how does that compare with the serious injuries and fatalities over the last 10, 20 years, if you can?
Yeah, thank you, Larry. Good morning, all. And of course, on the SIFs, the serious injuries and fatalities compared to the recordable ones, there has been a lot of learning in the Indian context, because I'm talking from the companies which are Indian background based. Though the current company where I am working is a multinational, but I am responsible on the India region point of it. So let me put that perspective into place. So of course, on the recordable ones, is one of the measures which, as every company does, even in Tata Motors we did, and the FL Smith where I am today, where there also we do. And interestingly, as it is visible across different organizations. So these LTIF and the TRIRs are, we are doing a great performance, year-on-year reduction and stuff like that. But suddenly there pops up a fatality or a major incident. It can even be a hypo. For example, the current company where I am, we didn't have fatalities for the last 4 years, which is a great achievement on the global level. But at the same time, when I joined in just 2 months before, I was surprised to see a lot of crane toppling incidents, which it was by sheer luck that the company did not have that converted into a fatality. Somehow people escaped from those huge cranes just toppling down, and they escaped from even getting a first aid injury around. So these are all kind of alarming bells as far as FL Smith is concerned. So as far
But
as
you were also saying about motor vehicles as well too, though, right? Before the show, we were talking about that you're also looking at the fatals in the motor vehicles as well, and unfortunately, those hadn't come down. Those hadn't come down either, right? But at least you were looking at that. A lot of companies, like, they barely pay attention to vehicular safety, right? It's because it's not part of their workplace safety record. I don't know. I mean, it's a dead person. I mean, it's significant. Anyhow, but
so rightly pointed out, driving safety or the road safety, we can either way call it, is one of the challenges whichever industry domain you are into, right? For example, in Tata Motors, in the last 5 years, we had 4 of our sales and service guys lost their life on the roads, which was a very, very pathetic scenario. And last year, 1920, after almost 7 long years, Tata Motors had a 0 fatality year. So again, it is by chance. I would not say. Of course, efforts are made in different corners, but having a zero fatality for a year itself is a big challenge in some set of industries. Yeah.
For sure. All right, Shankar. I know, like, I don't know if there's any really, like, they've probably taken all of like the pattern, but just tell me a bit about India, Middle East, and now you're in Australia. I mean, I know the pattern, like, because I've heard people from Australia come and speak about the pattern and then fly back to the university. It's a bit of what started this series, right? I'm not saying it's easy to give advice if you don't have to live with it. That's all. You've got to, you guys are the ones that actually have to go and like the last thing anybody wants is to be the lead investigator in another fatal investigation. I mean, Peter Bamford, that's why he came and worked for us. 13 fatal investigations at the railroad. He said, I can't do it again, Larry. I'd rather do something that's going to be much more on the proactive, preventive side. But so what's the pattern that you've seen, Shankar, over the last 10, 20 years for recordables and serious injuries and fatalities? Is the same sort of thing all over? The recordables coming down and the serious injuries staying the same, or have you guys made inroads on the fatalities?
So my elevator pitch on this, Larry, is across the past decades, and I can say I've worked with manufacturing for a decade plus and with construction now for the last 10 years. Non-serious workplace injuries have decreased, but fatalities have decreased at a much lower rate. So you look at not just the numbers, but the frequency rate or the severity rate, the rate has decreased lesser. So that makes an interesting theme for a dream webinar. As we said, the SIF cases are life-threatening, life-altering, fatal injuries or illnesses compared to the other ones. The precursors for SIFs exist in most sectors. It can be identified and measured. As Arun mentioned, there's a lot of increase in reporting, which does show good reduction rate in workplace injuries. And there is a lot of digitization that's happened that helps us correlate better. However, having said that, the fact of the matter is, and across the globe, the causes for incidents are very similar. If you look at the top 10 reasons, and you might go back to the Pareto, 20% of the causes contribute to 80% of the incidents, and that works both for the SIFs as well as the recordables. But the focus has been largely on recordables and reporting thereof. The Henrich pyramid works well. It's an interesting correlation one can draw, but yes, the trend is that there is a big correlation there. But you can say the focus has largely been on the behavioral aspects, which is fair. The technical aspects also are a big part of the causation model. I guess in construction, there's a lot of complexity. The Henrich pyramid is fairly constricted. There's a lot of change in the industry that I come from. So the time it takes to the stages of the project, the forming, storming, norming, it takes most of the chunk of the project. The 80% of the project goes in the forming and storing phase. So a good level of maturity in the way we manage incidents, understanding the entire culture behind that. And this is where I think data analytics can play a big role in going from, for the lagging indicators to the leading, and then going to a predictive and beyond that to a preventive culture of, incident prevention.
Okay. But okay, so I wanted, that's all I really wanted to do without being too whatever suggestive or directive, to say, okay, let's just first be clear that we've got a problem that's worth solving. And certainly in North America and in Europe, because the focus went from lost time accidents being the be all and end all, like your lost time accident frequency, you're getting your lost times to 0 for the year. When it went to just getting your total recordables down, there was an increased effort towards ergonomics and reducing musculoskeletal injuries that would be recordable. But obviously, like, it's pretty hard for a back strain to turn into a fatal unless your surgeon kills you if you actually went for an operation, right? So there's and obviously certain body parts aren't going to kill you, or there might not be enough hazardous energy, right? So but we're all in agreement that it takes a certain body part and it takes a certain amount of hazardous energy to kill somebody, right? On the other hand, that level of hazardous energy, falling down the stairs and hitting your head on the steps without being able to get a hand up and protect it can be enough to do it, though, unfortunately, right? So let's now go back to Prabeesh. You've got a choice, obviously, Prabeesh. I don't know if everybody caught it, that he had to distinguish upstream oil production from downstream. The upstreamers don't talk to the downstreamers. But anyhow, the high risk industry, drilling for oil, typically, certainly, and it's prone to serious injuries and fatalities. But typically 40 to 50% of those fatalities are driving to and from well sites in vehicles, at least in Canada and North America. So anyhow, Prabeesh, what did you do? Did you go back and look, look at the usual suspects, confined space, high voltage, high pressure, high temperature, working at heights, or did you go looking somewhere new, or where are you with it now, and how's it working?
Yeah, see, here we are in Kuwait for this company. We are here for last 1 year. We are operating. We are having 4 rigs operating in Kuwait. We are having drilling and workover 2 each, with an employees of around 300 people working with us. So we recently completed 1 year without any recordables, basically, even the last 1 year. So that helped us. Basically, we have
Were you working?
Yeah, working with John Energy in Kuwait. Yeah, the industries, but around the industries,
I haven't been hurt since I've been doing these webinars either. I've managed to keep myself from getting hurt sitting here. Yes. No, I mean, I didn't know if you guys were still working. Okay, good for you. All right, sorry. Carry on.
Yeah. So basically,
that's really good though. That's incredible. 0 recordables, obviously 0 fatals as well too, right?
Yes, yes. So actually, this is a very big challenge. Things. The main achievement is from the top to bottom. Normally, we go with the bottom to top things, but we have to work with the top to bottom things from the CEO level itself, from the operation manager. They are really pushing us hard for the safety things. And as everybody is talking about the data management, that is really important for all the industries. Whatever the industries they are, even it is a 10 employees or it may be a 100,000 employees. So we are using a software called Promise for basically reporting the hazards on time. And even what we do is normally we are pushing the people hard to write the hazard cards. We call us John Energy Safety Observation cards. So we are really pushing the cards. And even the problem is that we are very challenging because the people are working 28 days continuously, 12 hours a day without any rest. So basically the fatigue and the people are working continuously, that is a very big challenge for us. Even this last COVID pandemic, which causes the people has to stay for continuous 4 to 5 months without any vacations. So these are the challenges with our oil field in the upstream sector. The people has to work for 28 days continuously, and the junior crew, they have to work for 56 days continuously. That is our working pattern here. And so what we have is that, and the duty schedule is basically different. The manager, the senior people working from morning 6 to 6, and the junior people, they work from afternoon 12 to night 12 o'clock. And another crew shift will come from 12 to next day 12. So, so the people around 15, 18 people will be coming on that shift. So what we normally have to, sometimes we are very harsh. We tell them, okay, you should not go. The vehicle will not start if everybody's writing a card. Because that helps us a lot. But our thinking is that people at least realize something, and we put some challenges also. There is a benchmark that you have to get 800 cards a month. What our management thinking is that, okay, at least we will get 2 cards in a month from 800, which can save somebody's life. Definitely, it is a big thing, and it is really helping us on that. And people are writing the cards, and our HSCs medics, we have medics also. They will be putting in software. It is helping me to analyze on the next morning when I go to the side in the office. I can see, okay, how many cards are there? What are the areas? And as per that, we are making the monthly themes. Okay, in this month, we have a lot of hazards raised on the equipment damages. In this thing, there is a human issue, like people are not wearing the safety glasses. So again, then it is a brainstorming happens, and we go back to the people and ask them why it is happening, and we are making the themes accordingly. And
Okay,
after
so okay, so that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I mean, the observations probation are a great way to get the people thinking for sure.
Right.
I mean, I'd encourage you to just extend it a bit and say, listen, just take it one step further and start thinking about, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen in the next 24 hours? And what would likely be the precursors or the human factors that would lead up to something like that? And you can even break it into what would be the most expensive mistake, what would be the most time consuming mistake, what could be the most damaging to customer relations, and obviously serious injuries, right? You know, help the people sort of think of it like that. Give it a 24-hour, like not forever and ever for the rest of your life, right? Just give them a very, you know, finite time frame. Might even be to the end of the shift if you want, right? But just that way, well, two things. Number one, nobody gets defensive talking about the future, but it also gets them thinking about errors in the future versus deliberate decisions now, right? So that might also help going forward. Arun, I know you guys have managed your safety culture and your safety performance record very, very well. I've actually been on site there at Cornmandel, everybody. It's about 1,100 people there, hundreds of contractors. You can feel it's a very positive safety culture, and you can sort of feel it when you get there. So that's one of the things that I always sort of, you know, means more to me than the numbers. But tell me a bit about what you guys have been doing, Arun, in terms of serious injuries and fatalities. Tell us a bit about how you think it's working, and we'll go from there.
Right, Larry, that's a very important thing which you asked. We have seen that lagging indicators for years, and we see how do we fine tune this with the help of lead, and some of the approaches that we have taken is management commitment. So unless that is there, you implement is going to work well or for you. So that's one area we are getting our participation, full-hearted participation from the management side. The other thing is that we also seen communication is very accurate and also with quality. So there should be a quality communication to make down below on your goals. So unless that is there, there's nothing to happen. The next thing is on the cultural side, where we are year on year trying to measure the culture based on the actions we have taken or systems we implemented, and we really see a transformation. And one more thing which is very important for any organization, and what we have done is we have brought in the risk-based approach for any of our activities, whether it's permit systems or to get any job done. So you need to have a risk-based approach when you manage your things. Unless you have that risk-based approach, and this has to be brought into the supervisory level, because they're the one who is having the last level of contact. So unless you go and rectify, many times what is happening is you try to rectify the bottommost level and you don't find the results. Unless there is a change in culture from your supervisors and the senior leadership, you cannot expect the bottom level to go and deliver the changes that you're asking for.
Yeah, I agree.
That's one area we have worked on quite a lot. And as you know that we all talk about behavior-based safety, and we have been trying to get the behavior-based safety programs, but we're also looking at how we are going to measure it and see how do we show to the organization that there is a change happening, but it takes time. Only when people see things and when they are communicated that these are the changes happening, they start believing in it. Until then, you cannot, unless you make that strong communication to the people, the intent of the management, the changes that are happening, the involvement, the participation of the people. Many times it's very bookish. that the ground truthing is so different. So unless you go and attack the problems in that level, and I see that the quality of the champions that we have, many times you see it's the whole responsibility is in the shoulder of few people, and you don't try to create more leaders, more safety champions, and that's when things just becomes island. And once a person leaves or changes his role, you'll find that the whole area again goes back to its original form. So it's a continuous effort, as it was mentioned. And only one thing I just wanted to say on what Prabish was just mentioning. I somehow don't believe in the factor to force people to write cards or findings or near misses, which ultimately misleads the organization with many imaginary reports being generated. And you invest your resource on rectifying problems which actually don't exist. So we have to go back and bring a natural process of reporting, which is part of their core job. And otherwise, what happens is you will spend a lot of time analyzing and working on problems which actually don't exist. So that's how I see it.
Well, or you can be misled by a statistic like a high percent safe that gives you a false sense of security when if you're doing well, you're already going to be complacent. So you don't need to give people a whole bunch more you need to say, hey, this is typically when bad things happen, right? As soon as you think you've got the game won, next thing you know, the other team scores, right? It's just it's easy enough to let your guard down. And that's typically, when a lot of bad things happen, right? People get blindsided. Mr. Morelli, if I can, I'll just sort of ask you, okay, from either a Tata Motors perspective or if you want with the new ball team, the FL Smith there. With a company the size of Tata, there would be fatal injuries, like there's almost 1 million employees or over 1 million employees. So were there corporate initiatives? Were they typically divisional initiatives to get at the serious injuries and fatalities? Or was it right down at the very local level that the initiatives were taking place? So was there, just tell us about how it went and then tell us what you're doing at the new place. Mr. Morelli? Are you on mute? Mr. Morelli, can you hear me?
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yep, you are. Oh, good. Okay.
Thank you. To respond to your question, I cannot give you a plain dichotomy answer that it was a top management drive which held, or it was the site team which made it happen, or the working hands put together and brought out the change. Rather, maybe if I take the example of Tata Motors and to a larger extent the Tata Group, the Tata Sons and the Tata Group per se, it is happening at every level's contribution, right? So one of the key aspects as a organization, such a huge set of organization in Tata's, so the kind of efforts that happen is getting the governance right. For example, the governance is not only speaking at the BU level, the business unit level, or at the management level reviews and discussions. It is cascaded right from the board level discussion. It is cascaded down to the shop floor level, not at the plant level. I'm telling it is up to the shop floor level where the points are taken up for the discussion to take it forward. And of course, the benefit out of this particular thing is, of course, it gives a lot of cushioning and good feel good factor for the organization on the recordable injury per se. But with all this great things in place, still we have challenge on the serious injuries and fatalities. As you rightly say, the more the number of people within the system, there is a huge opportunity lying out where surprises can crop up and kill someone. And incidentally, that is what as a group and as a company, Tata Motors, we were facing quite a lot fatal injuries and serious injuries happening. And I could see one question which popped out in our chat box was on what about the hypos? Yes, if I take the example of the current company where I am in FL Smith, we didn't have fatalities in the last 4 years, as I mentioned in the beginning, but there were many dangerous occurrences or high potential incidents, we can say. They are quite alarming numbers, actually, right?
Mm-hmm.
So which could have easily converted into, it was a question of the time and space which helped us in not having a fatality around those incidents. So even a high potential scenario also is one thing as a company we need to do, right? So as a effort towards that, what in Tata Motors what we did was on fatality prevention is one aspect that we focused upon, and driving safety was one of the major concern over there. And in my current organization, it is more on driving safety, I can say, but still it is on the project sides wherein the mobile equipments, the mobile cranes, where toppling incidents happening is quite serious. Not only that, when we dig upon the data analysis for the last 4 years, when I did for this company, it is not only the crane related incidents, the work at height, which is typical, another major hit in any type of organization. So which is one of the key things which is coming up, rather the LTIs or the MTIs in whatever term we may call them. So those are all pointing towards work at height as the major hit. And the third one is on the energy isolation front of it. So all this had great fatal potential, yes, and lucky that we didn't have them converted into fatalities. So
So
obviously the
basically, Mr. Morelli, here, I don't want to say the usual suspects, but they're, like I said at the beginning, it takes a certain amount of hazardous energy and it's got to hit you in a vital spot, right? So motor vehicles are a good way for people to die accidentally. Lockout, tag out, working at heights, confined space entry. Those are, like I say, are sort of the usual suspects. So you went back and kind of looked more closely or more stringently at those things, right? Versus necessarily looking for another cause. Although with the motor vehicles, quite often the fatalities wouldn't necessarily be high speed, I wouldn't think. They would be more likely falling asleep at the wheel, didn't see the car, didn't see the truck, didn't see the pedestrian. Yeah. Well, that's part of what it is, right? It's like you look all over the world and everybody is serious, very concerned about the fatalities not coming down. Most CEOs would rather have 0 fatalities than a low recordable injury rate. You ask them any time. I care less about the recordable injury rate, if I could prevent that one fatality. So, we like I said, we've got an issue. And you guys went back and sort of looked a little more at the usual suspects. Shankar, what did you guys do? Did you go back and look, at the lockout, tagout, confined space entry, like I say, the usual suspects, or did you go looking somewhere new, or where are you at now?
So I'll pick up the thread from what Murli just said. We worked together a couple of decades back on driving safety, and goes back to the 10 ways you could prevent incidents. So the root cause of most accidents worldwide is inadequate risk perception. And I guess amplifying that is.
Oh, Shankar. Here's a subject near and dear to my heart there. That's the whole crux of the matter. Nobody's ever trying to get hurt. Inaccurate personal risk assessment. That is brilliant. Yes.
So the bedrock of getting safety right is risk assessment. And in a typical construction scenario or even manufacturing, you look at it by taking a simple take 3 question and answers on situational awareness. What could go wrong? What am I doing? And it's about awareness, alertness, and avoidance. like I said, coming back to the discussions on zero harm, it could be a nice bumper sticker, but if you get to the data, the ratio of recordables versus the SIFs, it's a lot about behaviors. Across the pandemic, we have created a safe bubble in the last 7-8 months. Of course, there have been some process incidents, and I think Arun has been close to quite a few of them. But the way we manage safety across the pandemic has had a lot of learnings there. So there are trends, a lot of commonalities to the injuries, but we need to surely work proactively to manage hazards at work. In a construction, like I said, the hazards are dynamic, so our efforts also has got to be dynamic. You mentioned, yes, the personal responsibility to stay safe is the heart of it. But if we need to get the results, we need to nail the Pareto. Like I said, the data, 20% of the hazards that contribute to 80% of the incidents. That's where we got to look at, between behaviors and equipment and safety. Complacence does set in. A few near misses or hypos, as Jerome in the panel just chatted, near-death experiences may just ensure that we stay alert. There are different levels of attention, but I think the holy grail, as you mentioned, is felt leadership. It's about the entire governance, the organization behind what you said. It also goes back to analysis without too much of paralysis, an in-depth investigation, and I guess this is where it comes in. At the outset, the Heydrich pyramid is relatively accurate. And when we look at the ratio, be it 329:1, if you're able to look at the statistics and look at the frequency, it does describe it well, it does fit in, but it's not so accurate in prediction, and that's where we've got to look at analysis. And so what improving the risk perception in analysis, investigating the incident, looking at the causes. We have ICAMs and various tools to investigate incidents if you're able to get in depth. And I realize that sometimes we leave the common causes and the root causes and try and close out, and as we try every incident, we try and communicate. There's a learnings from every incident. We cascade it within 24 hours, and within a week we try and publish the root causes and the kappas thereof. The subset of reported safety incidents will have some SIF exposure potential. The causal factors of the SIFs are largely different in kind to those that underlie the non-SIFs. So it is
really
unlike
interesting. Like behavioral factors, human factors, Shankar, or
both. Yeah.
okay.
Like I said, think of it, it's unlikely that even a severe injury or a serious injury is a one-off. Consider that there are precursors. So going back to the point of how we really look at predictive and preventive data, that is where it all comes back to. So that's the overall heart of it. So if you're able to look at that, and you'll be able to really track injuries and try and see what can be a severe or serious injury or fatality potential. The differentiation, a clear line of differentiation is important. While you spend a lot of energy in analyzing everything, you can analyze a near miss or high potential incident. It depends on the clarity of thought and ability to be able to nail down what is the critical root causes, and depending on the outcome. If you do that, you can really prevent these SIFs.
Well, I think so. I think that also, like, I was trying to explain this to one of my colleagues in North America. I said, look, if I ask you what has, you think about risk, it's high energy and it's also protection. So if I ask you what has more risk, walking or running, you're going to say running because there's more energy. What has more risk, a car or a motorcycle? You're going to say a motorcycle because it's got less protection. So if you look at a human being, what do you have for protection? You've got your eyes, your mind, what you can smell and what you can hear. I think we'd all agree by the time you can feel the hazard, it's a little late. So, basically what you can hear, what you can see, what you can smell, and think about. So by and large, when you got the windows up and the radio on, it's just your eyes and your mind not on task. Now, when your eyes and your mind aren't on task at that instant, you don't get a reflex. So if you look at things from a personal point of view, we'll agree nobody's ever trying to die accidentally. Either you didn't get a reflex, the reflex wasn't quick enough, or the reflex was irrelevant because you fell from 100 meters and it doesn't matter whether you got a hand up and didn't hit your head, right? So we've been focusing as safety professionals on where the reflex was irrelevant. It's not going to matter. You're going to die because you're no match for the crane toppling over you, right? Or you're no match for a 100-foot or a 100-meter fall. But we haven't really done anything to help people get the look or get the benefit of their reflexes. So when you're talking about the alertness, Shankar, I think that's one of the areas you want to maybe probe into a little bit deeper with your group and go, you know, are we really helping them with the awareness? And you know, Prabesh, I do agree with Arun, because I've seen not a million, but I've seen thousands of faked observation cards. But there's a certain amount of mental effort required to even fake writing out an observation card. You're still somehow putting a little bit of safety on somebody's radar screen. I don't get me wrong, Arun. I'm not advocating it. I just there is some benefit in terms of the awareness and the alertness that's a byproduct. There is also the whole misleading down the courtyard path that leads to nowhere part as well that you don't want to go on. But the alertness part, I think, Shankar, might be something that you guys could go back with. Now, I got a few questions that came in. The one we asked already about the hypos. Just a sec. Well, this question we've been trying to talk, everybody's been talking about, is how to deal with the management for prevention of workplace injuries in high-risk categories when management is not convinced. Now, I don't know what management needs to be convinced of. One would hope that you know, serious injuries in high risk categories would be something they'd all want to prevent. This one, though, I think would be worthwhile all of us giving a chance on. Can you talk about the use of accident investigation in pre-incident planning to prevent SIFs?
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
Yeah.
And Larry, analysis in depth using various models, the incident cause analysis method. Sometimes we get stuck. There could be 16 organizational factors, you know, from hardware, training, organizational communication, procedures, maintenance, design, risk management. There also could be contributing factors, field defenses, awareness, communication, and the management of change of people, of processes, technology, facilities. So it's important to get in-depth investigation, and sometimes a proper analysis will really get a lot of data. Involvement of leadership, yes, it's all about field leadership. This is not so much about safety leadership, it's about field leadership. If the organization leaders, it's the agenda for the organization leaders, safety, quality, productivity, delivery, I think that's the focus, that's the priority. They have to track that and get a long way towards zero harm.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Maroon. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Yeah, on the aspect of accident investigation, which helps in reducing the safes and stuff like that, I would look at it from a different angle. More than the investigation point of view is getting the team of people around, maybe our own employees, or maybe somebody who is supporting us through a contractual agreement or whatever it can be. Maybe it can be a transporter who is providing us some transport facilities all around. So one of the aspects that as a progressive organization we need to build up is on building the capabilities among the team members. So for example, when we do an investigation, maybe out of the 5-6 people who are part of the investigation team, maybe 3 of them don't even know what they're actually supposed to look at, which is practically a scenario which I have experienced in many of the incident investigations, even in fatal investigations, right? Which clearly speaks out, saying that people are not having an idea about what is that the company is lacking and where we need to look at for the right answers. Possibly we are capturing many observations and inferences and inputs from the leadership team, logging in all the observations, all this stuff there, but possibly everybody is looking in a wrong direction and incident happens in some other domain, right? So obviously, so that is one thing as a
I was
conscious
wondering,
organization.
I don't want to, I read the question verbatim, so But I was also wondering though, if whoever asked it was sort of like, for instance, if you had a serious injury and fatality because this work group or this crew did not do a pre-job risk assessment, and as a result they missed something and there was a serious injury or fatality, to take that and bring it back in terms of pre-planning, so that you're saying, hey guys, there's, even if it only is 1 in 100, right? It's still worth doing. It's not a waste of time. Or some sort of job safety analysis, or if the job changed, to do another risk assessment based on the new position of the crane before we actually just started the work. I mean, bringing some of those serious injury finding, like what was wrong, like it could be that they went ahead without a certain piece of equipment when they knew they really should have had it, but they said, oh, well, it'll probably be all, I mean, that's what I was wondering, if they were saying, can you take the, because you both mentioned the hard lessons learned, but not necessarily, those things weren't necessarily coming full circle and preventing the next one, right? And so that was why I was saying, well, if we're going down the wrong road, and we're chasing down the usual suspects, but actually they're not actually the culprits anymore, or not as much, then we got to start looking somewhere. We got to start looking somewhere else, right? But I think what they were asking is can we just take what we know and try to at least make sure everybody's aware of it when we go back in front? At least whoever asked the question, I hope that was part of the intent there. There was one more, and maybe we're going to probably have to close out. We got maybe 2 minutes left here. And Prapesh, maybe you want to take this one on about how to deal with management prevention of injuries in high-risk categories when management is not convinced. I mean, your management's convinced, though. They're pretty good. But anyhow, you have a
see, the main thing is that for safety professionals, we have to put everything with a cost. So the management, even all the management, if there is a cost in money, we have to put, okay, there will be a $100, $1,000 you lost due to this incident. Even in my previous organizations, I used to do like that. In our meetings, I go with the figures. There is a first aid case happened. The person is in the clinic for 2 hours. So you lost 2 hours of production. So that you maybe lost $1, $2, and you got a medical treatment case. You use the vehicle to transfer the person to the hospital. Then the person has got another employee also accompanied him in that particular area. So you lost 2 people or go to the hospital for 6 hours. So that cost I used to show to the management, and literally it helped me a lot. Whenever I am telling that the project manager or the person will start asking the question to the supervisor. He start asking, okay, you lost me around 8 hours, an hour. That is how we can just
even if they don't ask, it's always it's always in the back. It's in the subtext, right? People are it's part of it. How much is this going to cost us? But
this is the best
I
way to do it.
I agree with you that very, very seldom do they get all of the costs. All of, like, when you add it all up for them, they're like, no way. And you go, well, yeah, I mean, how do you think he got to the hospital, right? Exactly. Right. So, gentlemen, we are out of time. I would really like to carry this conversation on a bit further. And as you can see, they sort of lead into the next one, which is excellent safety equals excellent business performance. Yes, but is it cause or is it just correlation? And this is certain. Well, I sound like somebody saying these are all my favorite shows. This is definitely one of my favorite subjects, though, cause or correlation. And we'll also throw in a bit about just how much do senior managers and chief executive officers care. But once you start talking to them about cause and the fact that safety could actually improve top line revenue, not just bottom line revenue, and then you actually show them data, you'll have to show them a fair bit of data because they'll be skeptical. But that is a huge paradigm shift. for the managers, and it's a huge thing for safety professionals because you tend to get a lot more support, and the support isn't typically just the begrudging support. But this should be a very interesting one, gentlemen. I hope you could all join us. And ladies and gentlemen listening, it is, just want to make sure I get the date right. It is January 21st, 10:30 in the morning, India Standard Time. Excellent safety equals excellent business performance. Yes, but is it cause or correlation? I hope you can all join us for that one. And I'd like to wish you all a very merry holiday season, wherever in the world you are. And stay safe till you get that vaccine, everybody. Okay. Thanks very much.
Everybody stay safe. See you soon.
Okay.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you all.
Take care.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.